Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. I am so excited to share this interview with you. So I want to tell you a little bit about my interviewee. Calvin Corelli is a speaker, author, investor, spiritual teacher, and founder of Simplero, an all-in-one platform that makes growing an online business simpler. His first book is Show Up and Serve. His next book, titled You Are the Product, is coming out early next year. A coder since the age of 5, Calvin's genius is making entrepreneurship simpler. All right, let's get into it. Well, Calvin, I'm so excited to have you on today, and I'm really excited for everybody who's going to be listening because I think that you have an incredible story that people are going to want to hear. And it really aligns with the whole premise of my podcast, which is finding your personal journey, taking the route that suits you, and discovering who you actually are, right? And like that journey of self-discovery, spirituality, and incorporating that into your personal and professional life. And so something that I often talk about with my clients is, focusing on and discovering their authentic self. And that is very difficult to do. And so you said that you actually just reread The Alchemist after we first met, which I think is super suitable.
Yes.
So I wanted to talk about, one, just maybe like a Cliff Notes version of your story, and then we'll just kind of dive into the book. So can you kind of tell me a little bit about, or tell the listeners a little bit about your journey and your path that you've been on?
Yeah. Born and raised in Denmark and learned to program from a very, very young age and got sort of very left brain, structured, analytical thinking. At the same time, I was like a very spiritually oriented kid. I felt like I could kind of sense behind what was people's facades to what was really happening under them. And it was like very attuned. I had an aunt who was very into yoga and kinesiology and biodynamic foods and that kind of stuff, like early in the game, like early 80s kind of thing. So she was a big inspiration for me, but I shut that stuff down when I became a teenager. I was scared of it. It didn't seem like I could trust it. And so became this very closed down person that was like living in my head and no contact really with my body and my feelings. And then it was, like mid 30s, early 30s that I started to dig into that side. I was basically like, I had this notion that I had to be like an outlandishly successful entrepreneur by age 30, or I didn't have the right to live and exist and breathe and take up space. And so when I turned 30, I could still convince myself that it was right around the corner, and 31, 32, and then like 33, I just broke down. So that's when I got into therapy and coaching and body therapy and different kinds of modalities and started to really discover who I was. And it's funny because like the last thing I wanted to be was this emotional healer type person. And it turned out like, hey, what do you know? That's who I am. And I've come to love it. But it's really, I was thinking about it because I was coaching a client earlier here today. And that journey of when you're living in that mental prison and like, this is how I think I should be, and then unpacking that to who I really am, it's a fascinating process. And I found that working through the body is so helpful. Like we can't think our way to it. We need to start moving our body in a different way and breathing in a different way. And that opens up new neural pathways, and then we can start to actually live it in our lives.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I really am hooked on what you said about being afraid to like be who you are. That is something that happens all the time. In fact, I actually have this conversation with my clients often, is like that fear of being happy because they don't know that version of themselves. And so it sounds like for you, there's like this version of you that was absolutely terrifying. And yet that's exactly who you were the whole time. So what do you think, what was so scary about that side of you?
Well, so I had this notion that I needed to be very analytical and rational and left brain driven. I did the DISC test, DISC, that test, common personality test, right? So I did that in maybe, 20, 30 years ago, something like that. And I remember it was through my work, and I remember getting the result back, and it said that I had an adapted style of being very analytical, but I had my natural style was very intuitive. And it's completely blocked it with my head because I didn't have that distinction. I had no idea. But then it was like, oh, maybe that's why the boss I had at the time was like this very intuitive person. He was into coaching. He was a guy who brought his personal coach to work with all of us on the engineering team. And so I was very inspired and motivated by him. And I was like, oh, maybe I have a little bit of what he has. And I wasn't aware. I didn't know that. I was very scared. I think, so what happens for all of us is, when we're zero, when we're between 0 and 1, we just do whatever we do. And our parents are like, oh, that's amazing. And oh, he shat all over himself. It's incredible, right? We love you. And then around age 1, between 1 and 2, we start doing stuff that can get us in trouble. We start crawling and maybe we start walking. And at that point, our parents have to start saying no. And that shifts our brain chemistry from being just pure dopamine to now being noradrenaline and like cortisol and stuff that's negative. And so if we don't in that situation get really met properly, where like it's like dopamine, yay, everything's great, exploring, like, no, don't do that, oh shit, all these like noradrenaline and cortisol and stuff, and then back to being met, and now we can get the dopamine again and feel that love and connection again. If that doesn't happen, which it doesn't for most of us, and definitely not for those of us who choose to be entrepreneurs because we're crazy, then it creates that split that says, I am wrong, there's shame, and I have to behave a certain way in order to get love, right? When I behave this way, I feel shame, and that's awful. And nobody helped me to get back to a feeling of feeling good in that instance. So I kind of just stay in that shame place. And when I behave this way, I feel bad. And when I behave this way, I get love and I feel safe. And so I think that's where the split happens. And now we have to figure out how to basically heal that gap again.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, that's such a beautiful description of like Jungian psychology and shadow work. Do you ever look into shadow work stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. Did you ever find that you were annoyed by people who were more intuitive, people who were more in their emotions?
Oh, totally. Totally. Yeah. Debbie Ford was the one that I learned about like shadow work from in the beginning. And that was kind of her big thing. And she made this movie inspired by The Secret. And so she made kind of her own documentary version of that. And I remember there's one of the people in that movie, there was this like, I think it was like a Mexican guy who was like talking about his relationship with his dad and how like the shadow work helped him and whatnot. And he starts crying and I'm just like, God, I just like that guy. Oh my God, it's disgusting. It's just awful and how embarrassing. And like, I was judging him so hard. I'm like, I do not ever want to be that guy.
Yeah. You actually mentioned too, like, I think it was on your story the other day about this book that you read about masculinity. And so how does that kind of tie into this? Because I feel like that's a very common mistake, right? Is like that if you're emotional, if you're intuitive and you're not analytical, then you are no longer masculine. You are in your feminine energy. Mm-hmm. But you definitely embody your masculine energy and still have the intuition and the emotions and stuff. So what was that journey like to just like transition over? Yeah,
great question. I was super feminine as a boy. And growing up, I didn't want to be like my dad. I was scared of my dad. And so I was like, all right, that's bad. I want to be like my mom, to the extent where my first marriage was actually kind of me playing the role of my mom and projecting my dad onto my wife. It was not a good situation. So I think that the journey for me of owning my masculine has been, and like we both have access to both the feminine and the masculine, right? To me, the whole goal is being able to choose where we want to live, and draw on the different energies when we need them. But that journey for me was all about healing the boy, like reparenting that inner boy and helping him grow up to be a healthy masculine man. And I think the trick is like the feminine tends to be more like in their emotions, right? And that's what makes women exciting, right? That they're emotional and they're in their emotions. That's what makes them radiant. That's what makes us attracted to you guys. But for men, when we're emotional and like in our emotions, I don't think that's not super attractive. It's not, to me, very masculine. The masculine part is that we can be with our feelings, but we can be with the awareness and the consciousness around it, but we're fully available emotionally. We're just not like, we're not carried away by our feelings, but we still have them. And like, any man who pretends like, they don't have feelings, we all do, right? That's what makes us humans. My family growing up was very much, it was like, we all pretended like we didn't have feelings, but of course we all did have feelings, just we didn't talk about them, we didn't own it, we didn't acknowledge it. And so it was all this game of trying to say something that makes other people behave in a way so that my feelings go away without acknowledging that I have feelings. Right? It was weird game, and it didn't work that well. But yeah, I think it's all about having the awareness around them. I always think of like, it's not I am angry. It's I'm noticing the anger in me, and I can be with that, and I can use it. And then all those emotions become fuel. It becomes like a palette that I can play with in life.
So instead of being overtaken by an emotion like anger, it's just the awareness of, hey, this exists, and now I can redirect it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's people's...
If you're never angry, that's a problem, right? If you're never angry, it's like there's a part of you that you're not aware of, but like being able to feel the anger and then choose what to do with it, not lash out or punch or hit or yell or something at people uncontrollably, but in being charged of it, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So can you describe, because you were describing in a roundabout way what it looks like to embody that masculine and have the feminine inside of yourself. Can you show me, like, with words and what that looks like for you? Because I think what I encounter a lot with the men that I work with, because we talk a lot about masculine and feminine energy, and it's really difficult to describe for me as someone who really embodies my feminine energy, how to describe what masculine looks like while you're still holding space for your inner feminine.
So, I mean, to me, it's like the feminine is, the masculine is the structure and the focus and the direction energy. Like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go this way. This is where we're going. This is why. Like, clearing away the obstacles. Like, this is it. Like, just go straight to the point. The feminine is about relationship and relating and nurturing and like the creativity and exploring and all that, adventures and all of that stuff, right? So it's like, what do I need to do? I'm still someone that has a very strong feminine, and there are lots of situations where that's what's needed. And there are other situations where the masculine is needed. And so it's choosing, who do I need to show up as today with my wife, with my kids, with my team, with my clients, with whatever, like which side do I need to pull on in order to get where I want to go? Yeah. So it's being able to choose which one do I want to draw on. Is that answering your question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess for me, what I'm looking for is maybe an example that you have, like, is of a time whenever you've moved from one energy to the other, if that makes sense. Because I have clients, or just men in my life actually, who will struggle with that, because there's a lot of hate right now against masculinity, which is very sad, because they're just talking about toxic traits. Not masculinity is not toxic. It's actually very healing and protective. But I guess what the struggle is,
and there's definitely toxic femininity as well. Oh,
absolutely.
Like, they're toxic humans.
Yeah, it's toxic everything. You know what I mean? Everything can be toxic if you go too far to one side, But I guess what I find is that, describing for men, what is it? How do you show up for your wife?
I think so in a relationship, right? Typically it's like my wife is going through something and I'm like, oh, hon, what is it? Tell me about it. Like, what is, like, that's kind of approaching from a very feminine way versus like, come here, hon, I got you. We like, don't say anything. Just put your head, like, lie into me. Like that kind of like, give the structure, give the boundaries, be that stable pillar that she can just melt into versus like, oh, let's like really sit here and connect now. Right.
That's beautiful. That's exactly what I was looking for. Like that just physical sensation of like setting the stage between confidence and softness. Because like the soft side is that nurturing feminine side, and then the confidence is that masculine go-getter kind of vibe.
And you, by showing up with that energy, you just like, you shift her energy completely, right? Where she just like melts and she's like, yeah, like I'm safe here. Because for women, like that feeling safe is so important, which for us guys, it's just not a concern for us really. But that giving that structure, that container can make her feel safe. And then now she can relax into her feminine because she doesn't have to be that person that keeps things together.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I, we have a mentor that we've worked with for years who's amazing. And we were at a crisis point and we went to work with him and he said, look, Calvin, you're 80% in your feminine, your masculine is 20% of you right now. We got to get that balance. We got to get the masculine up. You're a man. We got to get that more up. And and Naomi, my wife, he's like, you're the opposite. You're 80% in your masculine, 20% feminine. We got to flip that around. So something that we've worked with together as a couple for like 6 years now of just figuring out what that looks like and healing that. There's a reason why I had my masculine side was still stuck at a 5-year-old. And there's a reason why her feminine side was stuck at a young age. And it's just healing, reparenting, right? Like what connecting with that boy, what did he need? What did he truly need back then? What does he need now from an adult?
What was it that yours needed?
He needed love. He needed to be loved and seen and protected from kind of the rage, and abuse is a strong word, but like that like lack of caring that he experienced back then. It was like, oh shit, like I have to have everything under control and like not be too silly. Like for me, I remember as a kid, if I was too happy or playful or silly or anything like that, my dad would get really angry, like smack me and stuff. And I think like, I love my dad. He's amazing. I'm super grateful. That's a beautiful thing too. As you mature, you realize, oh, I had the exact parents I needed to become the person that I'm here to become. Like I love my parents they're amazing. They've given me exactly what I needed. But as a kid, I didn't understand that, of course. And so it was like, shit, I think my dad had the same thing where he was like, I need to have things in order to be right and stuff. And when that little kid, like, he shows that side that I've repressed, like he's gonna react to that, right? That's what happens as a parent. We have those kids and they go through those ages where we had trauma and pain. And if we haven't healed that, they're going to bring it up in us. And then we can either heal it there or pass it on to the next generation, one of the two. And so like I learned, like, don't be too happy and don't be too free. You got to be controlled and really feel what other people are feeling and how they're doing. Like I had to sense my dad so he wouldn't get angry. And then, I got really good at it. So I developed some skills in that. I forget what your question was, but that was the source of my like unfreedom. What was the question?
It was about what it was that your inner child needed in order to like embrace that masculine. Oh, yeah.
So what he needed was to know that it's okay to just be him and not have everything figured out and be silly and stupid. For me, like actually just putting on music and dancing and being silly to music has been a huge release. And which it's kind of funny because is that a feminine thing? I don't know. But like for me, letting that thing, that just the joy of the music and just feeling what it does to my body when I allow it to move has been really cool way to get that stuff out. Again, like I talked about in the beginning, like the moving through the body is so important to get to that mental stuff, because like we can only go so far through conversation, which is also why I'm obsessed with body therapy. My mentor in Copenhagen has developed this body therapy system where you can go to all these deep emotional layers through the body and a lot of it through the belly. And it's like when we go try to do it through conversation alone, we can bullshit, right? We can come up with stories and lie to ourselves, lie to our therapist, whatever. When you go to the body, you can't lie. It's just the body is the.
Mm-hmm. I actually kind of want to snap back to what you said about dancing, if it's masculine or not. When I think about it, I think that it's more just authentic. I don't think that it's assigned any kind of like role, because I've watched men dance and they can be extremely attractive and masculine. You know what I mean? But I think there's something about like just actually embracing whatever it is that you're feeling. And what's so beautiful about dance, and like you said, like the body movement, is you can't hide. You can try, but you're going to be clunky, right? But if you actually set it free, then you get to like be your true self. And it's like this very joyful space. And I love that you were able to get there, because often I see in a lot of people, not just men, men in particular, but like, I guess being in your excited, joyful phase is definitely hidden in the shadow. It's like, nope, don't be too happy. For whatever reason, we're not allowed to be too happy. That's bad, yet that's what we're all striving to reach. But being told that we're not allowed to do that, which is confusing and difficult.
Yeah. I mean, most things in life is there's the thing that we want in our conscious mind, and then there's what our unconscious mind wants. And it's going to win, right? So we can consciously think that we want to be happy, but unconsciously we're deeply committed to being unhappy. My friend Gay Hendricks always says, whatever you've had in your life for more than 3 months, you're unconsciously committed to. So until you own and acknowledge that, and then identify what that commitment is, you can work as hard as you want and nothing's going to change.
Yeah, makes sense. I want to go into The Alchemist, though, if you want to follow me down that route, because, that is also one of your favorite books, right? So seriously, the book is amazing. So I want to talk about the 2 different characters that really stood out to me in the book. And the first one is the baker, who represents the person who took the safe route in life. The baker chose to listen to society's expectations of like, hey, this job and this career is going to give you a wife and a kid, and you're going to be stable and you don't have to take any risks. Then you have the crystal merchant, which is somebody who was constantly dreaming of going to Mecca, but just held on to the dream, never actually followed it, was too scared to follow it, felt that life would be over if he achieved the dream, very fearful of success. And from our chats that I've had with you, I've seen a little bit of both of those characters in your personal journey. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people listening who are probably in one of those categories. And so for you, are there points in your life where you felt like you resonated with one of those?
Yeah, 100%. And I think a big part of the difference, I'll double click on that in a second, but I think the big difference is, how committed are you? That voice never goes away, right? That voice that's like, that talks about your dream or your personal legend, in the words of Paulo Coelho, is always there. But most people, I find, are more committed to drowning it out than to actually staying true to it. So for me, I was married, I have 2 kids. I knew, so moved to the US. I'm from Denmark, moved to the US when I was when I was 20 something, 25 or something in 99, and knew instantly, this is my country. I need to live in this country. This is where I feel at home in a way that I never did in the country I grew up in. And then yada, yada, things happen. We ended up 9/11 and stuff. We ended up back in Copenhagen. It was supposed to be a short time. And then kids and house and mortgage, and like what was supposed to be 2 years ended up being 9 years. And then eventually I couldn't do it anymore. And that was the baker, right? House and kids and wife and all that stuff. And like, I cannot tell you the pain that still exists inside of me over having lost that. It's real. Like, that's not something to take lightly. And if I had been the person I am today, it would have gone the way that it did. Like, lots of things would have been different, but I wasn't. I did the best I could at the time, and it wasn't pretty. But I ended up getting divorced and moving back to the States, because that was my personal legend. I knew it in my bones from the minute I set foot in this country. This is where my personal legend is. And I decided, for me, I wasn't willing to sacrifice that, even for kids. Because I don't want to be the role model for my kids. My kids are going to do what I did, not what I said. And I didn't want to be the role model for my kids that said, you need to silence your own inner voice and give up on your personal legend, because that's the right thing to do for your kids. Is that the right choice? I don't know. It was the right choice for me. And it was what I felt I had to do in order to just stay alive, functional, and true to myself. Super painful decision, not just for me, obviously, but for my kids and ex-wife and the whole thing. It's one of those things, as you live, you make some choices, and like, they have consequences, and you are the person that you are at the time. And I was not very mature at the time, but that inner voice, I could not let it go. I just knew, and I tried for years and years, and I couldn't. I had to follow it, and I did. And then later, I'd say until fairly recently, I got more into the crystal merchant side of things, where then I got into coaching, spiritual teacher for entrepreneurs. That was my big calling, and started doing that early on, and then got super scared. Like, I get scared of success, scared of like, imposter and who am I and what do I know? Like all of that bullshit that goes on in our heads. Sorry if this is a PG podcast.
It's not.
I forgot to check.
I always put explicit.
Good.
Yeah.
It wasn't till fairly recently that I really started to step into that spiritual teacher coach role again. And it kind of came gradually, but when I look back, it's funny how, like, I thought of doing a podcast titled Running from Purpose. Because I feel like when I look back at my history, it's like, then I got into mixology, and I like started drinking, making cocktails like 4 nights a week or something. Cause like, well, I'm into mixology. No, I'm an alcoholic. No, I mean, not really, but like drank way too much for many years. And then I got into music and songwriting. I was like, oh, I'm going to be like a famous musician. I had my hair grow long and colored it like this, like supposed to be petroleum kind of grayish thing, and it ended up being this like weird ass like greenish color. Like all of that stuff that I did, and like a long list of other things that I've done, as like I did stand-up comedy and I did improv and I did like so much stuff instead of just like getting down to it. And I'm glad I did, because they're great experiences, and now I don't drink anymore, so I don't care about the mixology stuff, but I still know how to write songs and produce music, and I want to do that with something with that at some point. But like, oh my God, what I haven't done to try to avoid that purpose. And it really hit home this fall. I had my heart checked because there's something that fell a little off, and it turns out there's something with my EKG that's not quite normal, and like I think it's entirely spiritual, and there's not really a physical component to it. It was just like my heart being like, hey, dude, are we doing this or not? Right. I'm like, all right, let's do it.
That is such a cool. I love listening to you talk about your story, because I think you have such good language for describing what people are going through, So what did you discover was your true calling? Because it sounds like you were just like putting your hand in a bunch of different cookie jars, being like, maybe this is the thing. Maybe this is the thing. What was it that it narrowed down to? What was your personal legend, or are you still on that journey?
No, I mean, for me, it's the healer, essentially. I just do it in the context of business. I work with entrepreneurs because I think business is such a cool avenue for spiritual growth. Because you're gonna face all of your, like, all business problems are personal problems and spiritual problems that show up in business, every one of them. So it's just, when you're in business for yourself, like, those things tend to show up faster. Like you like, if you're flying this way and you're heading straight to a brick wall, you're going to hit that brick wall a lot faster than if you're in a job at a company somewhere, because there's a lot more safety around you. And like, the correlation between your growth as the owner, the CEO, the leader of the company, and the company is direct. It's so direct. You can even see it like in big companies, right? You can see how Apple is kind of like, has become kind of like Tim Cook, and Tesla is a lot like Elon Musk. And like, there's different personalities to these companies that are very much shaped by the founder. You can't escape that. And that's how it's supposed to be. So I like that. But I do see, so that's that work, doing that work is my personal legend. That's 100% what I'm here to do. I do see that morphing into a broad general audience at some point, where it's not just in business, onto entrepreneurship. So yeah,
it's your why. I think of Simon Sinek. I don't know if you've heard of him. But yeah, it totally is that why. I mean, how did you discover that it was the healer? I guess, like, because I think a lot of times people have that feeling, right? They're like, I know there's something out there for me, and it's pulling me, and it's drawing me in, but I don't know exactly what it is. And they just kind of have a roundabout, like, maybe I enjoy writing or something, but they're like, do I want to be an author? I don't know if I want to do that, So how were you able to just kind of narrow it down and be like, I want to be a healer, and that can show up in 1,000 different forms, but this is my thing?
So the first In 2008, I was still programming for money as a freelance programmer. And at that point, I had only one client left. It was Greenpeace International, and I did their intranet, and it was a good client. We'd had them for a long time and paid the bills nicely, and they were good to work with. And then at the beginning of the year, early January, they called me up and said, look, we've decided to outsource that project that you were working on to India. So sorry, you're out of a job. And then we just bought a house. We just had our second kid, and mortgage was crazy expensive because of some technicality stuff. And so I desperately started to look for some other gigs that I could pay the bills, and everything just like blew up. Nothing was happening. Like all kinds of things happened. It was crazy. And so like I was terrified because my biggest fear was always the financial. Like, what if I can't pay the bills? I've never ever been in a situation where I couldn't pay the bills. I don't know what that's like, but I'm always been scared of it. And at that point I was like scraping by for sure. And so in late February, I sat down. I was like, what is it? Like, God, universe, is this you trying to tell me that I should stop chasing the money to assuage my fears and just actually find out what it is I'm here to do? All right, I will do what you ask of me. So I sat down. I was like, what am I here to do? Asked myself a bunch of questions and like meditated on it or something. And then the answer popped into my head. I'm here to integrate spirituality and entrepreneurship. That's it. Integrate spirituality and entrepreneurship. It was a complete download of this is what it's going to look like. You're going to teach this, and then you're going to have an investment fund where you work with people, and like this is the future of humanity and how we solve all the problems with the entrepreneurships, with entrepreneurs who do their inner work so that they're more conscious, so they create more solutions than problems and all of that. Like it was a complete download. It was magical. I was like, fuck yeah, this is what I'm going to do. Then came all the challenges. Like that's what sparked me for starting my software company and Simplero and all that stuff. I was like, okay, like I need to do this. And I got into online coaching and all that stuff, or online courses and coaching and so on. I think, what was your question? Because I remember there's a second part to this that I wanted to touch on.
How did you discover that you were the healer?
Oh yeah. So this came to me like that. And then, I don't know if you've ever had this, but where like you see something, you feel it, you know it, and then you doubt it, and then you hesitate.
Yes.
Then,
often.
Yeah, so that was me for many years, right? Hence running from purpose as the theme. I had this hand analysis. Have you heard about Richard Unger and the International Institute of Hand Analysis ever?
No. What is that?
It's really interesting thing. So it's a guy who's been studying all the hand analysis traditions and kind of condensed it into a system that, given your prints, there are 4 different types of prints that we can have in the fingers. Given what types of prints we have and where they're placed and how many of the different types there are, it will give you a sentence that is your life purpose.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's wild. And so I had a session like that, and turns out, according to the system, my life purpose is to be a big shot spiritual teacher in the spotlight.
Mm.
That's the phrase. I'm like, when I heard that, I was like, this is fucking uncanny. Like this is,
yeah, that's insane.
This is weird. This is wild.
Yeah.
Cause I'm like, that's what I want to be. That's what I saw. That's what I felt like. Where the hell does this come from? Richard has trained a number of different people. I had a reading with a lady named Nana Rebecca, and then later with Beth Davis, and then Pamela Landers. And then finally, a year and a half ago, I had a reading with Richard Unger, actually. And it's the same system, and they tell you roughly the same thing, but they always interpret it like the stories that they tell and the way they explain it is always a little bit different. So it's been remarkable. And I keep returning to my notes from those sessions. I had one with Beth Davis in 2015 that was so prescient. And I go back to that and I'm like, shit, I should have listened to what she said back then, because she lays it all out. And it's not like I haven't read it again and again over the years, but then I just forget. And then I was like, I get consumed with life. And then, it's like this is the thing. It's right there and it's written in plain English. And now like you have to become the person that can actually own and live that. And that's the journey.
That's the scary part. like
Yeah.
embodying
Well,
that.
it's also the fun part.
It's the best part.
Yeah.
But it's also absolutely
Yeah.
horrifying for whatever reason. I don't know. Wow. Yeah.
Tell me about
That's
that.
amazing.
How's it horrifying?
I think that there is a fear of the unknown, right? And so if you embody your authentic self and you haven't been your authentic self at all, then you are now going to be somebody you don't know. And what are all the things that you're going to lose, right? Like often I'll think about like depression, right? I'll have clients come in who are clinging to depression and they don't realize they're clinging to depression because happiness is scary. But it's like, well, what do you lose if you get rid of depression? Well, you lose people checking in on you, right? You lose people maybe giving you extra nurturing that you feel like you need, or, maybe you have to like go out and talk to more people and try new things and pursue a career and pursue your dreams, like that's a lot of change. And we love homeostasis. Like, but yet we also hate it.
Have you seen the way Tony Robbins talks about this? So he has this human need psychology, 6 basic human needs: need for certainty, uncertainty or variety, significance, love and connection, growth and contribution. So those are the 6. And so when you're depressed, that means your need for certainty, right? I know the state, I've been here many times, right? It gives you, in many cases, uncertainty or variety, because you can fluctuate. Like, now I'm angry, now I'm like, whatever, I can go with this place. So it gives you some variety. Significance, I'm very depressed. Oh, you want like, oh, right, like, oh, my depression.
It's your
it's very
identity.
strong. Significance. Right. Love and connection with yourself. You're connecting with yourself, but other people check in on you, like exactly like you said, right? So now it meets 4 of the basic human needs, which means, I think he says, whenever it meets 2 needs, it becomes a habit. 3 becomes an addiction. 4, it becomes like a very strong addiction or something. So like, yeah, we become addicted to it. Like Gay Hendricks says, that the hardest addiction to break is the addiction to suffering.
Oh, yes. As an Enneagram 4, I don't know if you know anything about the Enneagram, but I am a 4 and I love suffering. it is so romantic to me. It is, leaning into happiness is against my whole being. So that's funny.
Might want to rewrite that one,
I am definitely leaning into the happiness and the joy now. That's where I'm at on this journey of like, nope, I know that my authentic self is that joyful side that's really playful and giggly and full of light, and lean into that, but it is that fear of taking that risk.
I remember early on, the way it showed up for me was like, if I just allow myself to just be happy and alive, it was like free fall. It was like the earth, like I was like, free fall through air. Like, it was so scary. Like, I'm going to fall. I remember that feeling very strongly. And recently I discovered this device called the Shift Wave, which is a chair. You can look it up. Shift Wave is just a $10,000 chair with these vibrating panels underneath. So you lie in that chair and it vibrates, and then it stops. And it's like, and it's some of that same feeling. So it does some kind of nervous system stimulation where it stimulates your nervous system, and then like as it vibrates harder and faster and stronger, and then like stops and like it fluctuates up and down. That's kind of what it does. But like, it's that when it stops, it's like some of that free fall feeling again. So I'm very fascinated with it. I haven't started going to a gym in Manhattan where they have one, and it's really cool. I really like how that feels and what that does. So I'm just thinking if there's like, it's definitely a nervous system thing when we feel that fear, right? So I'm thinking that something like that can help just get your nervous system more used to some of those states, and then it's not as scary anymore.
It's just getting that exposure, and that's cool that you can kind of maybe access it through other means. I think that dancing is a good one. That's what I do to access that inner joy. I will dance by myself. I have a playlist specifically for it, and I just dance until I start enjoying it. Like, I dance until it stops being awkward. You know what I mean? Because at first I'm like, I'm having a shitty day, but then eventually I'm just like, yes. And I will get so into it that I will start tearing up whenever I'm doing it, because I'm so in tune with myself and so it's just me and my human, and it's just absolutely beautiful.
I love that.
So yeah,
Nice.
you have to incorporate the physiology behind it, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if
For me, the singing is what gets me gets me emotional. I was just yesterday morning in the shower, put on loud music, singing along, like belching out loud, and I just like started crying. It's a really nice feeling.
I love that. It's such a it's like all the keys click into place, in that moment, and you're just like truly whole in yourself. It's amazing.
Yeah. Early on, the voice is very interesting. I think there's so much power in engaging the voice. Lived in India for a year about a little over 10 years ago, and we had this extra little kind of house upstairs, and I'd go up there and then I'd put on a song and then I'd just sing along to it, and I'd get to a certain spot and then I'd just break down crying so hard, and then I'd start over again and do the same thing, and I just kept it on repeat because I had this feeling that like there's something that song at that point was touching in me that was buried and that wanted to come out. And I just kept doing it until it stopped having that effect on me. I don't know, I just felt, it was very intense, but it felt amazing.
And you were brave enough to lean into it, because often we'll stop ourselves when we get to that point. We're like, ooh, nope, let me suck back those tears.
What was brave, so it was being alone was best, but then I was like, I'm gonna share this with my wife. So I was like, hon, is it okay if I sing this for you? And I did, and I just started crying again. And she was really sweet. She was really good about it.
Getting to share that spiritual side with your partner, so important. I think we often neglect that.
Yeah, and that was a pattern too. I spoke with my mom about it because my mom was kind of the spiritual. My dad was more the business guy, and when I decided, well, I can't, my dad would be angry and sometimes spank me and stuff, and my mom would never be there to protect me, and so unconsciously I decided that the spiritual is can't keep me safe, so I can't trust it, and so I'm gonna go into the business and just be all mental and be more like my dad. I spoke with my mom later, and she was reading Wayne Dyer and like some of these kind of spiritual books, especially that she got from her sister, my aunt, and she would hide them from my dad because she was afraid that he was going to see them. And so I learned that pattern from a young age of like hiding my spiritual side. And I was scared of opening up to it. I was that was scary for me, like to begin to acknowledge that. And then eventually I couldn't not anymore.
Yeah. You have to lean into it. I don't know if we have time. I have one final question, but we may not have time for this.
I don't have anything after this.
Oh, okay. This would be great. Yeah, because this is a question that just baffles me all the time. So,
and we can do the Joe Rogan thing and do a bathroom break in the middle too. We need to.
I love it. So, I find that there's two different spaces. There's the drive to chasing your personal legend, which is like the progression, the achievement, goal driven, right? Like just that drive that's like, I'm going all in. I'm going to, leave my house, my country. I'm going to do all these things, right? On the opposite end of the pendulum, there is contentment. And I know that logically that there's a space where we're supposed to incorporate both, right? And as I was thinking about it and just talking with people that I know who are on the same path, the space that's in between those two is where I have personally found that suffering lies. When I don't go all in on one side or the other. And it's very strange because I'll notice myself doing it just in one single day, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to work on my podcast and I'm going to work on all of these things, all of these dreams that I have. And I really, really love that. And that's the progression side. But then it's like, okay, well, just sit and be content here. But I don't know, when I'm in the in-between space, it's like I have one foot in each pond, but I'm not going all in on either one. And so, but I feel like what I've heard other people say, I don't know where I've heard this, but I feel like other people are saying, well, you're supposed to be content where you are in the journey. And I'm like, yes, but how do you balance that? How do you find that without feeling forced in one way or the other? Because if I try to lean into contentment while having my drive, then it feels forced. It feels like this is now a job. It stops having, I get burned out. You know what I mean? Or if I go to the contentment side and I'm like just zen with life, then I'm like, oh, but I'm not pursuing my dreams right now. I'm actually like on pause. I'm just sitting still. So I'm kind of curious, like, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah. Oh, this is good. A good one. I love this. So how are you doing contentment?
For me, I think it shows up as what I told you about, like the dancing. It's really been my relationship with myself. I mean, this past summer is where I really actually hit self-love, like really hit it to where now I feel whole as a person. I've never felt that way before. And so I think it's just being with me, being with my human and spending time with her and trusting that things are going to be okay, that I can handle whatever life throws at me. But it feels very still. Like it's whenever I stop moving, I stop striving.
So how are you doing discontentment?
Oh, I've mastered the art of that one. I'm very good at that.
Okay. Well, how do you do it? What do you say to yourself?
Oof, a lot of negativity, a lot of hopelessness about the future, stuck on the...
What's the story?
I mean, I would say...
What are the words?
I don't know, because it's difficult because there's a lot of different spaces. Because if I go on the professional side...
one...
On the professional side, I would say it's you're not going to have money to survive.
Okay.
There's a story that I have in my head that I have to have a husband in order to be able to afford things. When I bought my car a couple of years ago, I did the math on it like 6 times. I was like, how am I able to afford this as a woman? And that was very telling to me, where I was like, oh my gosh, I've been told my whole life I need a man to take care of me. So there's this fear of like, if I don't have a husband, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. I need somebody to come rescue me.
Is that true?
No.
That you'll know? No. Mm-mm. How do you feel when you think that?
Hopeless.
What does it feel like in your body?
Definitely stomach dropping. Everything feels heavier. And like there's an empty black hole inside of my core. Like a longing, a big open black space.
Yeah. How would you feel if you couldn't think that thought?
The first thing that popped into my head was imagining my entire body being filled with this gold, sparkly liquid. For some reason, whenever I do active imagination stuff, my inner goddess is like very gold and sparkly. But just very full, very whole, very capable, fearless, risk taker.
Awesome. What would be the opposite of that thought?
I felt uncomfortable just thinking that. Before I even said it out loud, I instantly felt uncomfortable that I can do it all alone. And I think as I say that, what comes to me is this fear of having to live life alone, because I am such a communalistic individual. I do not identify with Western society. I think we are too individualized, and to have to live alone is one of my greatest fears.
So you're afraid that if you own your power to the ability to do, have the money and be able to buy and survive and live and to do all the things you need to do as a woman without needing a man, that means you will never have a man. Which I think
can be kind of true. Because
is that true though?
A lot of men are very intimidated by success. Like there is a strange societal hierarchy. And I think it's true on both ends. It's not just men. I think that women kind of get the ick by men who are making less than them. And it's not like an intentional thing, but there is something to that, where maybe it's because I'm very attracted to masculine. And so when I picture masculine, I picture that as like the go-getter, right? Like that's the drive. That's kind of the energy I embody whenever I'm chasing my dreams, is like that masculine side. I feel like it's like I'll lose respect for somebody if they don't have that same drive. And the more I succeed, the smaller number of people that now may be a good match for me.
How many do you need?
Just one. Out of 8 billion, just one.
All right. So who cares? Yeah. No, I get it. Like, this is so beautiful. I love this. This is, beautiful. And your honesty is just incredible. I really love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Don't lower your standard because you're afraid you're not going to meet a man that lives up to the same standard. Right. I think where it goes wrong, and this is kind of speculation, but I think where it goes wrong is a woman who's so strong in her masculine, so rewarded for the masculine, and forgets how to switch into the feminine when that's needed. I think you probably want to attract a man who's confident and comfortable, and is he able to go even stronger in the masculine, which I think men are inherently wired to do. But of course, like, you're not gonna, like, you being super successful with your therapy business and getting into group programs and like your podcast and millions in downloads and money and all that stuff, and then find some dude who has no direction in life and doesn't work out and just lying on the couch feeling depressed all day. I don't think that's going to be a match. So I'd advise against getting with that guy, right? Manifest the guy that you do want, someone who's strong, successful, confident, takes care of his body and knows how to shift you into your feminine, even when you're like kind of stuck in your masculine work mode. Right. So just manifest that guy. And don't use that as an excuse to hold yourself down, because I think it's very real and very true what you're saying, but also it can become an easy excuse for not actually pursuing your personal legend.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it absolutely is an excuse at times, for sure. And, I think I got a lot of it.
And then you can be like, oh, it's society and men.
Yeah.
And like all these
Everybody
things.
Else did this to me.
Right?
Yeah, I like to blame other people. I'm very good at that. I'm like, you are the problem.
Only you. You're the only one that does that.
I know, right? I am the only person who does it. You guys don't. You guys have a perfect life, right? Yeah. Especially...
All 7.9999 whatever billion other people. Yeah. All of us.
You guys are doing it way better than I am. It's a really interesting thing now that you say that, like bringing that up, because I think there was another aspect to it too. Whenever we first got together and had lunch, was that fear of also like surpassing my family as well. So like I think there's multiple things that go into success for me that just really scare me. But honestly, when I started my practice, I was like absolutely terrified. I was so scared. I was like, I'm doing it because logically it makes sense. There is not a bone in my body that says I should do this. And I did it anyway. And it was so worth it, and I have moments of sheer panic because, being a first year business owner, I think there's a lot that plays into it, but it really is just like embodying who I know I am, because I know I am very creative, and I'm very much a big thinker, like a big dreamer, right? I'm not a detail oriented person. Like, do not put me in an accounting situation. Like, no, thank you. I don't want to stare at the details, like, no, I can dream really, really big. But there's a lot that comes into it, like we've talked about, you and I've talked about before, is like the imposter syndrome as well. Like, am I smart enough? Right. There's like all of these things that come in and try to prevent me, which, going back to The Alchemist, happens to Santiago the whole time, where he's like constantly presented with reasons why he shouldn't do something, why he shouldn't continue following his personal legend. But it is very difficult at times.
Make sure that I don't think you will, because you're not wired that way, but like making sure you don't lose the feminine core, and that you don't get disillusioned with men and relationships and all that stuff. Like, you stay true to your feminine core. And I think one of the mistakes a lot of women make too is that they go they kind of go all in on the masculine when it comes to business. I think the big opportunity is really stay centered in the feminine and do business from a feminine place, right? You still need just enough masculine structure around it to make things work, but really lead with that core. I think you're going to do amazing, and you're going to have no problem finding a man. And if you do, it's not because of that. It's like, then like work on what the issue really is, instead of like trying to play small in the hopes that you find a small man, which is never going to satisfy you. It's just never going to work.
Right. It's definitely not.
Because the man that you want is also going to want you in your essence, right? He's not going to want a wife that's playing small like that. Like
he's not the guy for me if he is, because I have too big of a
Right,
personality.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So trust in that.
You know, that actually, shout out to one of my exes. His name is David. He and I have had, like, we just continually have a conversation about masculine and feminine energy. And what's cool is, you know, he's a good reminder whenever we do talk, is to embody that feminine energy, you know? And so I have been very intentional, because the dating world today is very, I don't know, anti how humans are supposed to meet. I think we're faced with way too much rejection. There's too much murkiness in the water. Everybody's bitter on the dating apps. Like, it's not a good space.
Yeah.
And I have been intentional, especially recently, because now that I've found like that self-love of just like leaning into the feminine energy. And, you know, David, my friend, he was able to just like remind me, like, keep leaning into it. Just because I would get guarded, kind of like they give you advice on the, I don't know who these people are, but people on the internet tell women, they're like, don't give him the boyfriend experience unless he commits to you, because he's just going to use you. And like, it's just this us against them mentality. And so I'm like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm going to be me, and who I am is very flirty, and I love to cook for you, and I want to be in that feminine energy. I want to be giggly around you. And if I really like that person, I'm going to do that. And even though it hasn't worked out to being, you know, having found my person, like, that helps me a lot. So I am very intentional about trying to stay in that feminine energy. I guess I've never really thought about incorporating that into the business side though, and like chasing my dreams, because I don't even consider masculine and feminine energy too much whenever I think about that, but it makes a lot of sense to do that. I think my masculine comes in and says, you're not going to be able to live in your apartment anymore. Like, you are not going to make money, and you're going to be homeless.
Fear. It's not masculine. That's just
Yeah.
a fear. That's just the fear thought. Yeah. So yeah, all of those fears, all of that story. So where I was getting to with your original question here was like, how do you do the balance between contentment and the drive? The way I look at it is contentment, or even like total love of everything that is right now, is our natural state. It's our birthright. Like, a baby is not born into this world thinking, this is wrong and I'm not good enough, and like like, it's not how that works, right? I know a baby doesn't have a lot of mental acuity, but it's a learned behavior. It's a learned mental pattern of making ourselves wrong, making life wrong. Like, I'm not rich enough. I'm gonna like stories about the future. I'm not gonna be able to, as a woman, I can't, blah, blah, blah. All of those are stories that we've learned. And it's just unpeeling them one after the other. Baron Katie is amazing at this. I don't know if you've done her work, but I mean, it's basically what we were doing before, right? So it's just identifying those stories one after the other and just questioning them and turning them around. And you kind of do that, and they start to lose their potency. And then you sink into just like unconditional love of everything that exists in this moment. Everything that is. That's fucking contentment. It's not something that you have to work to, like, oh shit, I'm sorry, like, let me do something, let me journal, let me do something so I feel contentment. It's like, it's a natural, it's like the sunny, like the sun is always there above the clouds, right? You just have to get rid of the clouds, and then it's there already. And then the drive becomes, because if there's already love and joy there, your drive becomes this innate desire. I was just reading the phenomenal book, rereading, called A Happy Pocket Full of Money. If you haven't read this, read it. Read it. It's amazing. So, but he talks about desire versus want. The way I think of it, and it gave me language to something that I've been thinking about, which is like, this is like, oh, I want something. I want it. It's like, there's a feeling of lack, right? In that there's like, I want it. It's not here. And so we're focusing on the lack, on the wanting, and we tend to kind of stay in a state of wanting because that's what we're manifesting. And that's the state, like, oh, I want, I need, like, that's not a good state. So avoiding that and just returning to, no, like everything is exactly as it should be right this moment. But desire, I feel like, is a different energy. Like desire, sexual desire, right, is natural. Like feeling that sexual desire feels good, right? We like that feeling. Now, when it turns into like, I need to have right now, like then it becomes a different thing, right? But like feeling the desire feels amazing. And it's like a creative act. I mean, where do new humans come from? They come from that feeling of desire, right? It's beautiful. It's amazing. And so it's one of the most creative things that we can do is to create from that desire. I desire to express myself in this way. I desire to create this thing. I desire to do this for service for other people. But it's coming from a place of already being filled up, already being whole and complete, and then wanting to, like, overflowing and want to give and want to do for others. That's how I think of it.
That is.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, like, the difference between desire and want, I think you named it. Like, that's the part that I've been missing, or at least the language of, because wanting is the grasping. Desire is, you're already in it. You don't even have to have it to experience the joy of desire. But with wanting, you have to wait. And then you're usually let down when you get what you want.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. It's like the desire for, like, enjoying the desire in itself, not the desire so that it can be like, like they're relieved and go away, or like you're not attached to it. You're just enjoying that desire to create or express yourself. And the drive too is another part of it, where you know why you're doing this. You're not doing it to prove yourself. You're not doing it to be better than, or to feel safe or something in the future. You're doing it because it's what lights you up. It's your purpose. It's why you're here, and you feel that strongly. So there can be a lot of drive in that. There can be a lot of power in that. But it's more like a wave that you're riding than like, forcing, right? David Hawkins' Power versus Force, that idea. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So tons of drive.
Yeah. It seems like drive is the consequence of it. It's just like a little passenger with desire. But whenever, I feel like want is the annoying backseat driver, just telling us to keep going. I need this, when it's like, nah, actually it's all here and everything's good and everything is actually really great here.
And once you realize time doesn't exist, so this whole idea that I'm going to create this in the future, well, it's just an idea. Like, all of the things that I desire are already here right now. I just need to kind of maneuver myself into that pocket in time space where it becomes my experienced reality right now, but it's already here. It already exists, and I can just relax into that and feel the gratitude for that and feel the excitement about that, and like do the things I need to do right now, but not out of a lack or need or want.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's really difficult to explain that feeling to people who haven't experienced it, because, I used to get so annoyed when people would say that. I would just be like, are you kidding me? No, that is not the answer I want. How do I get what I want? But, last summer, whenever I actually went to a retreat with Matthew Hussey, and it was absolutely incredible because I had this amazing moment where he walked us down this meditative journey, and the whole path was to, like, just going back through our life, and then we came to this field, and in the field there was a baby, and we, like, sat down next to the baby, and it's you And you get to watch yourself grow up, and then you get to live your life with yourself. And anyways, it was absolutely amazing. But what was so shocking for me was that my soulmate was me the whole time. It was like this incredible feeling, because I've been, I guess, chasing that soulmate feeling in a partner forever. Like, oh, that the one will be out there, and that's going to just complete me. But whenever I found out it was me, it was the most beautiful experience of my life. And so for me, that's kind of how I now am experiencing the joy in the moment. That's why I love to dance alone, because I'm with my human. Like, she's the one who's never going to leave me. She's even going to be there when I die. She's the only one who's guaranteed to be there when I die. And she's never abandoned me. She's been there for every horrible moment. Every time I'm sitting underneath the table, sobbing my eyes out, she was there, and she gets it. And so, yeah, it's interesting, as I'm on this journey right now, just like going back to her over and over and over again, because I feel like that's something I have to unlearn. I mean, 35 years of doing it the other way, of lurking externally for every want, every need to be given to me, when I actually did have it all along, which was a little bit annoying to find out that people were right. I hated that.
I know ego.
Yeah.
I know that feeling for sure. Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing, right? Because like when we're in that phase from 1 to 2, we disown a part of ourselves. And then most people stay in that way, and then they find some other person. There's 2 reasons you fall in love with someone that has to be there. Number 1 is that they have that part that you disowned. So that's why we have that feeling that oh, you complete me. I find a partner that completes me because they have the part that I disowned. No, you had that part the whole time. You just need to include it, and then you get to feel whole in yourself. And now you can meet another person that feels whole, and you can actually have a real relationship. But the other part that someone has to have in order for us to fall in love is that they need to mirror the offender, the person that caused us to disown that part, the person that hurt us, that made us feel like we were wrong for being that way. So they also represent that part. So we're set up for real challenges in relationship, and that's kind of how it works. It's like the path to become whole again, and to make peace with the offending aspect, and to reincorporate the disowned part of ourselves. And that's, to me, what relationship is about, or a big part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the work comes in relationships, like whenever people think about, oh, whenever we get married, it's going to be work, but it's okay. And you think that it's just, no, it's not what you think it's going to be. The work is way different than what you think. It's actually more internal. Like they always say that like your partner is your mirror. They're going to reflect everything back to you that you do not want to see in yourself.
Yeah. And it's the most rewarding, beautiful thing ever. After we met in Denver, my wife was going through some dental work, and she was sedated the whole day Tuesday. And it was such a deep gut punch that I did not expect, to kind of see her just like she has the IV, and then they eject the thing. And then like within 15 seconds, she was gone. And I was like, oh. It was like, it just hit me much, much deeper than I thought it was going to be. Because like logically I knew, well, they're sedating her, and then they're going to like, I guess like unsedate her or whatever they do, right? They're going to bring her back. But just seeing her guy just go like that, I was like, oh shit, this love thing is a lot more intense than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Wow. That's also beautiful too. I think sometimes we need that perspective that life is short, and that people are vulnerable, and I don't know. It's beautiful to be able to love people through those things in those moments.
And I think the reason it hit me too is I've always been that person that was like, I don't need anybody. I can figure everything out on my own. I can just, so I'm not used to feeling that kind of attachment in that way. I can feel love, but that part where it's like, oh shit, I'm not used to that.
Yeah, because now you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable to loss and to grief. It's a scary time. Okay, well, thank you for answering all of these questions. Like, this has been incredible. And I hope that everybody else is like getting away or taking away as much from it as I am, because there are so many golden nuggets throughout this that you've said that I'm just like definitely floored by. So I'm really grateful that you came on and kind of shared that with everybody.
Thank you. I'm super grateful to be here. It's really, I really enjoy talking with you and having, just being here in your presence. It was super fun to meet you a couple weeks ago and now do this. So really enjoy it. Appreciate it very much. I'm thinking about like your audience. If there's something that I can offer them, do you think they're more likely to be kind of like you in that therapy space and be interested in how to grow a coaching business, or do you think they're more into like holistic health approach thing?
That's a tough one. I would say it's probably more the holistic side of it, but I'm sure that there are people who are in the therapy space or in the self-employed side of things that, I mean, honestly, I think both would be great for a lot of people.
All right. Well, let's do it. I have two things that I can offer. I have a video that I shot about, so I've been in the coaching business for many years with the software Simplero. We help thousands of coaches. We think we've helped people make collectively over $530 million on our platform. And so we've seen some things. So I made this video the other day of what we see is as the simplest path to get to 10K a month as a coach. And so I can share that with people. So if you go follow me on Instagram, Calvin Corelli, and then DM me the words 10K and just say that you came from this podcast, then I can send you that video. And then, so that's 10K. And then for the health stuff, I have this kind of holistic approach to it where it's about the body and the movement and the breath and all those things. It's about diet. It's about toxins. It's about the mental, the mindset. And then it's about the energy level. Because to me, health is like Western medicine is so off base when it comes to health. So it's like, I take a holistic approach to it. So I have a training I put together on that. So if you DM me the word health, I'll happily send that to people as well. So if that's interesting to people, that's what I got. It's what I got right here. So Calvin Corelli at Instagram, follow, DM 10K or health or both. That's fine.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that, having the right resources is so important because there's so much information out on the internet that's bogus. So, finding people who are actually walking the journey is pretty rare, So yeah, I'm glad that you shared that. So hopefully you guys will check it out.
My pleasure. Well, it's super fun to be with you, and I trust I'll see you again soon at some point. Well, we're doing the reverse podcast, so we'll be doing that soon.
Yes, we will, which I'm very excited about. Curious how that's going to go. So I think it'll be good.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to digging in. Very cool. All right.
Thank you guys so much for joining me on today's episode. I really hope that you got a lot out of this as I did. There are so many golden nuggets to take away from Calvin and his approach to things. And just as a reminder, this is not a substitute for therapy or therapeutic advice. So if you guys are looking for a therapist in your area, check out the links below. Again, please share this with anybody that you know might be interested in this. Also, check me out on Instagram and TikTok. You guys can send me messages there. Let me know what topics that you might be interested in hearing more about and kind of see what I'm up to. So thank you again for joining me. I look forward to the next episode.